We want to welcome in Newsmax contributor Kevin Broderick, and hopefully he'll also be joined by Rick Ungar. We'll try to establish contact with him in just a minute. But first, Kevin, to you, what do you think? Is the GOP, as John said, trying to steal the nomination?
Mr. Trump said that.
Well, not you, but he was saying what Trump said. I stand corrected. Is the GOP trying to steal the nomination away from Trump?
I think without a doubt. I mean, they're going to do everything they possibly can to get Trump out of there. The last few weeks have been fairly disastrous for Donald Trump when it comes to women voters, and the polling is showing that. He's getting destroyed with Latino voters and with women voters. You have 47% of Republican women saying they would never vote for Donald Trump. I don't know how you win a general election with those kind of numbers. And so the GOP establishment and the RNC are going to be looking at every avenue possible to deny him that 1237. 1237 is the only way he gets the nomination. If he has less than 1237, I think they're going to look at this whole thing completely holistically. They might pick someone that hasn't even run this cycle, a la a Paul Ryan or someone else, and try and put together a package deal and sell it to the American public over a 3-month period, 4-month period. But they're against Donald Trump full throttle, and they're going to prevent him at all turns.
I don't know if it's so much that they're against Donald Trump. I think they are in favor of winning. Earlier this week, we played the soundbite of Mitch McConnell, who's definitely a member of the establishment, saying he's not going to get into the personalities involved, but he would support the candidate who is most likely to win. And these are the reason why these rules are in place. Striking for me as well, Kevin, is the difference between the campaign statement released by Trump last night and the tweets and what he said after his meeting with Reince Priebus. The two don't really jibe very well. And something, you know, whether it was just sour grapes from losing Wisconsin last night, he has a responsibility to not just close the deal with the voters, but close the deal with the party. And that's what the convention is all about. And I was of the belief that after Super Tuesday, Trump was basically unstoppable. He still had to close a deal with the GOP and the rest of the voters in the country. And this is his area of expertise, closing the deal, but he doesn't seem to be able to do that. And it's not just his comments about abortion or NATO, but it's partly his temperament. And he didn't sound very presidential, even though he promised to be with
Well,
that
he said it was boring.
He said he was going to clean it up and it was going to be less of a petty tweeting type campaign, but he hasn't really done that yet. I mean, we haven't heard much from him the last couple of days besides that statement he made, which was disparaging Cruz. The reality is Cruz doesn't poll that well either in a head-to-head. I mean, you have to hope for a few things to happen. If we're talking about who's going to win the election, you have to look at John Kasich. I mean, John Kasich is going to play this rope-a-dope game. He should ride it all the way to the end, prevent both of them from getting 1237, and then go to the convention and say, hey, look at head-to-head polling. I beat Hillary Clinton by in the real
Kevin,
clear average by 6 points.
The voters do not care about electability, at least not now. They do not care. We've shown poll after poll of John Kasich beating Hillary Clinton in a general election matchup. John Kasich has, you know, aside from being electable in November, he's got to win. He's got to win something. He's got to do better than, you know, there was some discussion about him getting second place in Wisconsin. He did not perform.
Came in third, right?
In a distant third place.
Correct, but John, if you have Trump with 1,100 delegates, Cruz with 850 delegates, and Kasich with 350, but Kasich blows away the Democratic candidate head-to-head, and you have a GOP establishment dead set against Trump and or Cruz. They're not exactly huge fans of Cruz either. You could make the argument that, hey, no one won, let's scrap it and start over. Let's do a delegate count at the convention, and we'll sit here for 3 days and figure out who's going to be the candidate. In case it could come out ahead on that in that scenario.
Well, let's go ahead and bring in Rick Ungar. We've been able to get in touch with him, and Rick, we're talking about, you know, the likelihood of a contested convention here. The one thing Ted Cruz does have going for him, despite his lack of popularity in Washington, he has laid the groundwork for a solid ground game, and he has the organization seems to do very well in a floor fight at the convention. Do you think like he has the best chance, despite the delegate count right now, of going on to become the nominee?
No, absolutely not. Look, I mean, first, I was able to hear you guys. I do have to respond to one thing. It sounded like Kevin was blaming the GOP for Trump's problems with women. I think Trump might have to blame himself for that problem. But yes, it's true that Cruz clearly has the best ground game. He has the best organization, frankly, of any candidate on either side. But let's look at the reality here. Nobody wants Cruz. Cruz is getting votes that are really, for the most part, not fully, anti-Trump votes. So they get to the convention. Trump can't win it on the first ballot. I do agree that everybody's going to make the effort to stop that if he doesn't have them. He's going to be done. But they're not going to turn to Cruz and go, well, you're the guy we really wanted. Now we can pick you, because they can't stand him either, and they know that he'll do just as poorly in November. So, no, it's not like he's going to pick up all of those Trump votes because he has a good ground order.
But how ugly could that be? I mean, when you
Very,
think about the voters.
It's going to get really messy.
Very ugly. But you know what? It's ugly. Look, if Trump goes to the convention 150 votes short, by the way, if he's inside of 100, he can probably cut enough deals with uncommitted delegates and Marco Rubio delegates that he could probably win on the first round. If he can't make those deals, or if he's short by a couple hundred, which is possible at this point, then they're not going to. It's not going to make a difference because the number two guy who came in with the second most votes gets the nomination. No one's going to feel better about that. It's going to be ugly if Trump doesn't get it any which way. But there are rules, and if Trump doesn't have the delegates, he doesn't have the delegates.
That's right. The number is 1237, not 1236, not 1235. And it's just as incumbent upon Ted Cruz right now to try and close a deal as it is on Donald Trump. And John Kasich is going to do.
And I don't know what kind of a deal he can make. Who's he going to make a deal with?
It's either Trump gets the 1237, or honestly, we might see two people on the ticket that we haven't seen in this election cycle.
I agree. I completely agree with that.
Could be Condoleezza Rice and Paul Ryan.
These are the rules. Read them all. They're on the RNC's webpage.
Rick,
you can check them out for yourself.
Rick, Kevin, stick around. We still have a lot more to talk about. We're going to talk about Bernie Sanders coming up. He may beat Hillary Clinton, but he may have taken a beating after an interview. Also, pressure mounts to impeach Alabama's GOP governor. Find out why during today's headlines. You're watching Newsmax Now.